Hi, and welcome to another episode of She's the Boss Female Entrepreneur Stories, where I interview some of the most fabulous and phenomenal women in business. If you haven't already done so, please make sure you click that subscribe button so that you're the first to know when I release a new video. Today, I'm really excited. I am joined by my namesake, another lady called Daniella. Daniella Blechner is joining us today. Thank you for joining me, Daniella. Tell us
Pleasure.
about
Thank you.
tell us about your
It's an
business.
honour to be interviewed by someone with the same name who also spelled it with two L's as well.
It just makes it that much more special. So your
Yeah.
business is Conscious Dreams Publishing, and you are the. I'm going to let you say your title.
All right, so I'm an author, book journey mentor, and founder of a company called Conscious Dreams Publishing.
I love that name. So I love your name, but I also love your business name. Tell us how did you get into the industry first and foremostly, and also then what is the story behind the name?
Okay, cool. I like those questions. So how I got into it is I've always wanted to be an author. Anyone who knew me as a kid from 4 years old, anyone at school used to say, Daniella with a name. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd always say, I'm going to be an author. It was never a question. There was no doubt. I wanted to be retired at 40, sit at home all day and write books. So that's before those limitations are placed upon you that tell you, you can't do this. You're going to be like that to do this. There was no question I wanted to be an author. So I ended up publishing 7 books for my 40th birthday, for my 37th birthday even. So I started off by buying a book called Getting Published by Harry Bingham. It's step-by-step guide. So I was looking at getting published traditionally. So the first thing I did was read the book, and it said, write a query letter. Wrote out the query letter. The query letter is like a 1-page or 3-page letter to an agent applying to, be taken on. So I set that off, and then it normally takes between 3 and 6 weeks for them to get back in contact with you. So I, stopped writing while I was waiting for these replies. All the replies, I say all, I mean 3, it came back saying, great writing capability, very witty, very funny, great writing style. However, we're looking for somebody with more of a platform, or somebody who, has a marketing plan or whatever. And so then I did what they tell you not to do, and that's to, approach all the traditional publishing companies without an agent. So I did it anyway because I just wanted a bit more rejection. Why not? So I sent off these letters again, and then I stopped writing because I was waiting. And then all the letters, i.e. 1, came back. Great writing capability, witty, funny, good style, very topical at the moment. However, we don't accept unsolicited authors. And that's when I kind of woke up and I realized, you know what, I've been waiting and I've stopped writing, and I haven't been waiting for a response. I've actually been waiting for validation. I've been waiting for somebody to say, you've got great writing capability. What you've got to offer is brilliant. You matter. Your story matters. Your journey matters. These other women's stories who are within this book, their stories matter. Then I realized, well, if I know that this is important, I've got a strong why and I've got a strong message, and I want to honor these women's stories, then by hook or by crook, we've got to do, if the door's not open, we've got to create it ourselves. And that's what I did. I researched extensively the publishing process and the industry and how to promote market. So I set up my own company and I published it myself, and the book did really well. It beat, I don't know if you know Steve Harvey's Think Like a Man, Act Like a Woman book. That book didn't help me, but it beat that one on the bestseller list, and I was really happy. So people, I got quite good press. So lots of people coming to me saying, how did you do that? Can you hook me up with an editor or a typesetter, cover designer? I was doing this left, right, and centre. Then I realised, hold on, I've got 11 plus years of teaching experience, secondary school, and I offer mentoring as well. Why don't I? And my love is books and literature. Put the two together. Conscious Dreams Publishing. I've already got a company up and running. Now I want to offer a service that I didn't have and I would have loved to have had when I was trying to navigate my way through the quagmire of information about publishing, and assist people with powerful messages and stories who don't often get heard through that publishing process, and help them to really get out there, not just as an author, but as speaker and somebody who really wants to share their message with the rest of the world. You asked me about my company name as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. There's a second part. So Conscious Dreams Publishing really came from, I'll tell you a little story. When I was young, I don't really have nightmares. In fact, I very rarely have nightmares. But when I was young, sometimes I used to dream about being in a war zone, and maybe I'd be running away from somebody, and the person behind me is nearly on me, and I don't know bad things happening to me, trust me, especially not in my dream. So I remember as this to be a voice that kind of used to narrate and say, right, this is a dream, you can change the outcome of this. And I went on to learn that this is called lucid dreaming. And so when I became conscious and aware within the dream that it was a dream, then I would start to change the outcome and create, I would turn around, kind of freeze frame, turn around and then either befriend this person and get talking to them about, oh, really? Would you like a cup of tea? Totally really different to how the dream was going, and consciously change that dream. So that's where the name came from. And the second part of that is just understanding the power of dreams, because a lot of people talk about, their dreams and aspirations. And one day I'm going to do this, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to do that, I'm going to set up a business. It's like, are you just saying this as a fantasy dream, or are you actually putting conscious action and conscious thought into what you really want to do? And so conscious dreams is just like a play on that. But, if you have a dream, that's great. But what are those conscious steps, thoughts, actions that you are aligning with that dream? And are you implementing them?
I love that. I love that for a variety of reasons. I am somebody that has dreams and nightmares, vivid ones, constantly. And the method that you've just said about befriending somebody in the dream, my problem is I don't ever know when I'm dreaming until I wake up. Because somebody had said what you said to me before, in your nightmares, are you aware? If you can make yourself aware, then you can do whatever it is that you need to do. I don't know that I'm dreaming. It's quite scary. So yeah, that's spoken to me.
I think a lot of people don't. When you're dreaming, you're in that dream. And I don't lucid dream often, but I think it's only when I had those nightmares that as a young child, I was able to consciously be aware. There's some good books about it, actually, that you can actually train yourself to do that.
Yeah, no, I think I'm going to, because especially when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was having vivid nightmares pretty much every single night throughout my pregnancy. It's calm. She's 4 now. It's calmed down, but at least once a week I'll have a bad nightmare, and the rest, at least 2 or 3 days, I have a really vivid dream. So it might not be a bad thing, could be a great thing, like I'm in Jamaica, but I'm there. Like I'll wake up and I'll feel like I've been in Jamaica the night before. It's quite interesting.
Wow, that's amazing.
Let me not go. Yeah, I'm not going to go off on a tangent now, because I can speak about dreams all day.
Another conversation. Yeah, that sounds like a book.
Well, I'm going to go into that one a bit later. So you said you were a teacher.
Yes,
in education. So what? And I ask this question a lot, and obviously you said that you were writing and the reason why you started, but what gave you the confidence to know that you can do it, given that your I suppose your day job had been something so very different to business?
I think I've always written, though. So from, like I said, from age 4, I was writing poems, the text on the map. Before I could write, I was telling stories. I was telling stories to my kids, to my sisters, who were to go to sleep. I had a very vivid imagination. I was a kid that would be asked to write, a paragraph, and I'll be writing like 20 pages of, a whole novel. I was a kid that would glue. I've got one somewhere in my room. I wish I brought it. I'd glue pieces of computer paper together and create my own book with an ISBN and barcode on the back. Wow. So there was never a doubt, and nobody told me that I couldn't. You see, until I think subconsciously, as you get older, you start looking at literature around you. I was growing up with Topsy and Tim and Enid Blyton books. Yeah, that's great, but I couldn't see me. So I think what happens to you as a minority who's not represented, subconsciously you start to think that your voice doesn't matter, or you think that, I can't do this because I don't look like the everyday norm of what a writer or author should look like. On top of that, you've got people who may look like these people. They already have these conditioning thoughts of, I can't do this because I'm not this huge, I'm not a Shakespearean, I don't speak like Shakespeare, I haven't got an amazing vocabulary. So imagine that combated with not being represented. But it still didn't deter me, because it's something that's just in my, like I say, I always say to people, if you are not sure about whether you can do something or not, go back to that young child. That young child didn't have any doubt. She just went on passion. And that's one thing that's never been taken away from me. That's writing. Yes, there may be limitations of, is it good enough for this, or is it good enough for traditional publishing? But if you love something, you can't allow others dictations of what you can and can't do. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that it was tough. It definitely was tough. But I think your passion and why you're writing something should be the overriding factor of, just knocking down those obstacles.
And I suppose a follow-on question from that then is, you said it was tough. What were some of the biggest challenges that you experienced, especially after? So you wrote all the books, and then you said, right, I'm going to be a publisher. What were some of
Yes.
the
So
biggest
what the
challenges you
challenge
faced?
in terms of becoming a publisher or getting published or trying to get published the traditional way?
To go into the next stage? So after you've already published, and
Yeah.
now you're saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. What were the challenges that you experienced there?
Right. Challenges that I experienced, I guess, was I had a very small team. I knew a bit about business. Obviously, coming from a teaching background, I had the mentoring skills and the writing and all of that. But going into business is a whole different field. You've got to learn about researching your market, knowing who your market is, who are your competitors, how you're going to be different to them. Funding's another thing. I was blessed enough to get a 10 grand startup loan from Virgin Startup in 2016, but it took so long to kind of, that application's about 20 pages, and you've got to do a cash flow forecast. I teach English, I don't like math. So it's finding the right people around you who can support and help you, and knowing what your skills are and what you need to pass on to somebody else. Another huge lesson or challenge I found was that I found that there were so many people out there who wanted to be published, who had these amazing stories, and so there's a demand for what I'm offering. But am I able to keep up with that demand and do everything else that I'm doing? There's a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and he talks
I
about,
love it. That is
that
one
book.
of my favorite books. I always recommend that book to all of the clients that I work with.
Oh,
If you haven't
cool.
got it, buy it, read it. It's
It's
fantastic.
so important, isn't it? He talks about, this is probably what changed my thinking. You've got three different types when you've got your own business. You've got the entrepreneur who's in charge of the vision and the creativity and the overall kind of direction of the business. Then you've got the manager who's managing the people within the business. Then you've got the technician. And when I read that book, I was like, I'd like to say I'm the entrepreneur, like to say I'm all three, but I am the technician. I'm doing everything. I'm doing the social media. I'm trying to sort out my finances. I'm, putting a lot of these books together myself. Obviously, I'm not designing them. That's not my skill. But, I'm doing proofreading even. I'm organising events. I'm mentoring people. I'm taking phone calls. I'm trying to sort out my systems. I'm trying to sort out my database. I'm doing everything, and I'm becoming overwhelmed. And so I think the biggest thing for me was once I got my funding is realising the importance of building a team. And again, it's easy to have that solution, but you've got to make sure when you're building a team that the people within your team share the same values as you, because if there's one value that's slightly out of sync, it's not going to work, and who are in alignment with your vision. So one of the biggest hurdles I overcame was to get a VA. I love creating content. I love writing blogs. Sorry, I love posting. But I was getting so much that I had to pass it on to somebody else. She was fantastic. She put out content. So I tell her every week what I needed. She'll put out content on my social media platforms, and it was helping with engagement. You see, so by just getting one person to do that, it was helping in so many different areas and freeing up my time as well. So it's just finding a way to be the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician, and knowing when to put those hats on. Was a difficulty in transitioning for me.
I love that. I love that also that you got a loan. So many people are scared of getting loans and purposely will avoid them at all costs. And my kind of philosophy on that is, if you believe in what you're doing, and if you believe that you can get sales, then you should believe that you'll be able to pay the loan back.
Exactly.
So
if
you got the
just pay the loan back out of the loan and don't spend it. No.
also an option.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think that was a lifesaver for me, because when I look back at it now, I was like, I can't believe I was just doing this all from my pocket. Like, what life did I have? I was buying everything myself, and that just freed me up to really just think about a business seriously, really make sure that I got those clients in, and it's just been an absolute godsend.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing. It really gives you that impetus. A lot of startups and small business owners, they don't spend lots of time on sales because a lot of people don't really like that kind of sales process. If you know you've got amount of money to pay back every month, it will really spur you on to get out and start trying to make some money because you know that you have to pay it back.
Yeah,
For sure.
100%. I think
Um,
a lot of people they don't like the whole selling thing. The selling is a swear word, but actually, when you think about your business as a company, you're providing a service, yes, but you've got to sell. So it's a huge part of the business. You've got to sell. If I wasn't selling services, I wouldn't have a business. So
mhm,
there's ways of selling, and I think that by showing people the value in what you're offering, using testimonials, showing them what you've got to offer is selling. Everything you're doing, in a sense, is selling without having to be, come and buy my product, 9.99. Or
No, I definitely agree. So taking on staff, I speak with small business owners regularly who have taken on staff, and I am also testament to this. In my first business, I took on staff, ended up firing people, and had a lot of challenges. How did you get around that? So you're saying obviously having people with closely aligned values. How did you make sure that you picked the right people? And especially with the business that you're doing, it's something that I can see would be quite personal. How did you make sure that you made the right choices?
Yeah, good question. A lot of what we do is freelance, so work remotely.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess it's not the same as working in an office and there's the other people. You've got to tell one of them, look, you've got to go. It's I've got a range of different editors, for example, or that would be horrible. I don't know if I'd be able to do that, but I guess you'd have to do that. But a range of different editors, a range of different designers, and quite often I'll match the designer to the request of the author or the personality of the author, or what it is that they want. Same with the editors. Um, so I've never really had to say, look, it's not quite working out. I've tested out I might have tested out. I always ask for samples because it's
Hmm.
skills based. You can't really. I've never had anyone kind of let me down and not deliver anything. I think I've been lucky now speaking with you, but I've had typesetters, for example, I've tested out and they might have sent something back and I thought, oh, this isn't quite in alignment. So I just don't opt for them. I just don't choose them. But
Hmm.
and again, I'm blessed enough to have had VAs and people working on my team who've just been brilliant. Um, I suppose the scenario was that I had an editor who wasn't in alignment with me in terms of offering value, or maybe they were constantly missing deadlines, which we can't afford to do. Then it would be a case of being really honest with them and say, look, I think this is working. Give them a chance. So this is working. We really like the fact that you do this and you do that, the sandwich. However, this part, that can't run. It's really important that you meet deadlines. And if that happens again, it's not a shock then if they're no longer on your team or you no longer choose to work with them. So I
Hmm.
think the point of doing it, and that if I was to do that, it would be in that way. But I haven't had to hire anyone as such because it's very much freelance based.
Let's be happy that it's that way. It's not a pleasant experience.
And
The Yeah, the
that's
first person that I actually fired, I didn't fire them. I sent my project manager, who was my really close friend at the time, I sent her to go and do it for me because I was like, I can't do this. It's too much.
you became the entrepreneur and the manager took over, right?
I was like, you go and do that. This is not my thing. And subsequently, I ended up firing people. I just worked out that I probably wasn't that good a judge of character, and recruitment isn't my thing.
Yeah,
So the advice that I normally give to people is if you can afford it, outsource the recruitment function. Not totally, so you still be part of it, but have people come on board who are professionals in this so that you don't end up having to fire loads of people like I did.
good idea.
Hmm. So you spoke earlier about not seeing people that look like you in books. How important do you think representation is? I personally think it's very important, but
Yeah,
in terms of books and people, especially at the moment, there's a lot of talk around underrepresentation of Black kids in books. I saw an article the other day about it, I can't remember where. How important do you think that is in terms of
oh,
framing who you become and who you want to become?
yeah, so important, so important. It's imperative. I'm reading up on a couple of articles yesterday because we're doing an event for Black History Month, October,
Mhm.
which we celebrate Black history all the time. but we're doing an event which celebrates Black authors and Black literature. One of the stats is that in 2017-18, the children's literacy CLPE, I can't remember what it stands for now, it's gone, program of education, I think it is. They have said that 5% of children's books feature a BAME, Black and minority ethnic character. Out of that, and then the shocking 1% are leading protagonists in a book. That's unacceptable, completely unacceptable, because we're not just talking about, characters of African Caribbean descent. We're talking about all races that are not Caucasian. That's a travesty, because there are so many authors out there. When you look out there, when I go to book fairs, when I go to events, I see Black authors everywhere. I see Asian authors everywhere. They've got their books. We're just not being taken on by the mainstream. As you can see, here are some of the books that we've done. We've done the Black Colouring History book. We're actually doing book 2 coming out in October. So this came out in October last year. Again, it focuses on key figures throughout history, some well-known, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, some lesser known. And it's an opportunity for kids to read about characters, people, real-life people who've achieved amazing things that look like them, and to colour them in and to read about them. We've got another book here, Dolly May and the Magical Enchanted Garden. Again, it talks about the author's upbringing in Jamaica and, some of the beautiful vegetation, fruits, trees, plants that you can see there. But again, she brings in key leading Black figures into that garden as well, which children can celebrate and learn about, children of all races. We've got a book by our youngest author, 13-year-old Black girl, and she has, as you can see, leading Black female protagonist. It's so important, because I want us to see books and see us, and for it not to be a Black book, and for it not to be, it has to have a Black theme. And I want this to be normal, and I want it to be the same for Asians, for Native Americans, for all, people from all different backgrounds and ethnicities, to see themselves on the front covers of books and the leading protagonists, and it not to be pigeonholed as, a BAME book, because it's not, it's a book, but at the moment it has to be, because we're not out there.
Yeah, no, I really need to purchase those books, especially the second one about the little girl in Jamaica, because my daughter would absolutely die for that. Yeah, I love that. She's always going on about Jamaica.
Oh, is she? Oh,
yeah, so I think. And do you think so? Completely different industry, but I know that for many years there's been underrepresentation of Black people in film, for example. And it was always said that it's because Black films don't sell. And then they did Black Panther, was it this year or last year, and it had huge success. And now it seems that there's going to be more money put into Black films. Do you think that something similar needs to happen within the kind of book industry, literature? Sorry.
Funny you say that, because my background is film, so I went to Ravensbourne and did content creation course there. And my first, my journey to writing was through, writing poetry, being on the circuit, doing open mic stuff, and then moving into wanting to write for TV and film scripts. That was so hard that I got back into my love, which is books. And my dissertation, did a 10,000-word dissertation based on, representation in film. So wow, I would have loved to, write another dissertation, including the history of Black Panther, and including that into the dissertation. So do I think there's going to be that revelation in books? I don't know. I think only if we create it. But I am a strong.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it that will make a difference? Like, if that happened, if somebody did a book version of the Black Panther, and not obviously about the Black Panther, but that has a similar level of success, do you think that then other publishing companies and agencies, people would pay more attention to Black authors? Do you think it needs to be?
Yeah, of course they would. They're jumping anything that looks like it sells. I mean, at the moment, you'll see a lot of these schemes going around for, BAME. They've suddenly realised that there's no diversity in publishing, so now they're, looking for people and setting up initiatives. So I'm sure if there was a book that, you know, did really well, had critical acclaim, then it would be, oh, actually, there is a market. Because I've spoken to a lot of Black authors. I've been to a lot of conferences where they've been dictated to or told, oh, we actually need to water that down because it's not going to sell in the commercial market, or maybe we should just have it as this market over here. So maybe, but you know what I would like to see? Small independent publishers, especially Black publishers out there, actually doing it for themselves. So we're not waiting for something to hit mainstream and to be successful in order for these books to be accepted. I'd like to see us really just put everything we can into creating authors who are successful, who and just do it for ourselves, you know. And then if the mainstream catch on, they catch on. You know, brilliant.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Going way back, growing up, you said that you were that child that would be making your own books and doing that kind of thing. How important was the support of your family in terms of keeping that kind of creative side of you alive and building that confidence that you said that you had in yourself and your written ability?
Well, think about my mum actually. She always encouraged me to write. I remember I used to like start off writing poems, The Cat Sat on the Mat, and she always used to send them off to like poetry competitions. I remember doing that. Never heard back from any of them, but you know, I was very much kind of just left to do my. I was just left to do my own thing. Really, I can't imagine not writing. One thing I would say about my mum is she took me to the library a lot. So I think that was when it was realised that most kids would love. I used to love nature as well. The park and the library would be my favourite places. So for me, being in a library was like, oh my gosh, wow! It was just an exciting place to be because there's so much knowledge to be read. There's so much to gain from it. I think teachers at school always encourage reading. I remember we had to like have a reading list. Over the summer holiday, I was like, you know, I'm on book 10, literally, in the 6 weeks. So I guess in a sense I was encouraged, but the writing I think was something that was just something that I did. I think it was more reading that was encouraged, but the writing was just a natural thing that I would do because I wouldn't really share necessarily with my family what I was doing, but it was I just did it.
And then when you then decided to do it professionally and branch out on your own and go into business, who was your support system then? Who were your cheerleaders? What was your experience with the people around you?
It's a really interesting question because when I was decided that I was going to fund this book myself, somebody told me about crowdfunding. My first thing was like, crowdfunding? I can't ask people for money because, you know, I'm the sort of person that even if I didn't have money, I'd rather stay at home and starve than ask anyone. But I changed my mindset around it and realized actually I'm not asking for money. What I'm doing is I'm pitching a project that is valuable and can help other people and has value. So I'm asking people to buy into that project in exchange for. So, for example, people would, you know, contribute £15 in exchange for a dedication in the book, a copy of some poems and a copy of the book, and then it kind of went up and up from there. And that's where I think I realized who really my cheerleaders were. I had people, it was more successful than I could ever imagine. I got 1,100 over within 6 weeks. Okay. And a lot of them were people that I went to primary school with that I hadn't seen for like 30 years or 25 years at the time. I went to different schools and different colleges, and you know, I worked in different places, so I know different people from many different places. You know, so I had all these different people that I'd connected with throughout my life, who some of whom I hadn't spoken to for years, but they're seeing what I'm doing, and they're supporting me. So I guess what I'm saying is that when you do things outside the box, or you achieve something, you set up a business, or you write a book, or you do something that you don't usually do. Sometimes you'll be surprised at who your cheerleaders are, you know, and you never know who's watching. You never know who's watching. And it's not always the people that you think it's going to be, you know, people, like I said, who I hadn't seen for years and years and years and years. And that meant a lot to me. And I think when you're doing big projects and people get behind you and support you, share your things, send you messages saying what I think you're doing is great, contribute towards it, show up to your launches, they show themselves. They're the people who are your biggest supporters, and you should always remember them.
In terms of your personal brand, how have you kind of promoted yourself personally as an author, what kind of key things have you done throughout your career that you believe has kind of put you in a position that you're able to sell books to people, and people know who you are and are interested in reading what you've produced?
Yeah. As an author, also, it feels fun to remember I'm an author because now all my promotion and branding is really about publishing. So as an author, I think because I'd researched publishing, I hadn't really researched branding and promotion and all that stuff now. So a lot of the things I've learned now, I would definitely implement in my next book. But as an author at the time, any opportunity that was in alignment with my values, I would go for. So radio interviews, press coverage, going to do this speaking interview, going to this speaking engagement, going to that event. So really just connecting people and going out there and going to events and speaking. So being visible, really important, I think. In terms of promoting my business now, I think it's really important to build a community. So I've got a Facebook group called Write. So whenever I have consultations with people, it's Women Remain Inspired to Elevate. So I ask, I say, go into that group. You'll see the people that I've worked with. Most of my authors are in that group. You can share information, you can get advice from experts, you can do Facebook Live. So I think once you built up a hub, that's not the word I want to use, but once you built up your clientele, they begin to speak for you. Yeah, they become part of your branding, I guess. So when they do speaking engagements, they'll speak about conscious dreams publishing, and when they're in the group, they'll maybe do a live or speak about conscious dreams publishing. So they become an extended part, or their testimonials become an extended part of your offering and branding, I think. I've recently, my VA, Claire Lockie, who also does a lot of our project work at Conscious Dreams Publishing, she's created some lovely Instagram tiles for me. I was never really into Instagram. I wasn't using it properly. I was just uploading. It's how we met, isn't it? I was uploading like random pictures here, there, and everywhere whenever I wanted, but focusing more on Facebook and other platforms. But since you've created these templates, which are in alignment with my branding and colours and messaging, I've noticed a real difference in the clientele and the engagement that I'm getting. So it's knowing, it's not something that comes straight away, but it's just knowing who to speak with and what your brand represents, what your mission is, what your vision is, who your clientele are, and then finding someone who can design things, because that's not my thing, who can design things beautiful and are in alignment with the branding. And obviously, I'm a writer, so I do a lot of the messaging as well.
I love Instagram. In fact, I love it probably a little bit too much. My hand is hurting today, and I think it's because I've been holding and scrolling too much.
Oh my gosh.
I'm an Instagram junkie. It's a problem. I'm working on it. No, I this idea of putting yourself out there, I think it's so true. And I think a lot of the time people kind of hide behind the brand name or their company name and don't necessarily put their own face out there because they're scared of whatever. I don't know what they're scared of, but I think, in terms of if you're trying to create something and build a brand, often it's important that people know who you are. And I think, stuff like speaking engagements and that kind of thing really help to help you share your values and the values of the brand or the business. And if without doing that, I think it's quite difficult to build any sort of, especially service-based business, I think more so than any sort of products. What has been your kind of greatest achievement so far, and what is your biggest goal in the future?
Greatest achievement in business. Well, over the last 3 years, I have published over 60 books, mentored over 180 authors and aspiring authors, helping to develop their skill set in marketing, promotion, speaking, and confidence. I've delivered over 28 workshops, and we've had, I think, 16 bestsellers.
Wow.
It's only because I did a workshop a few weeks ago. Actually, I'm part of Bianca Miller's Self-Made Mastermind. I don't know if you know Bianca Miller and Bo. And they said to write down, use numbers. How many years experience do you have? How many of this have you had? So I wrote down the numbers, and I looked at them. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never said that. I've never introduced myself in that way. So when you put it all together, looking at what I've accomplished over those 3 years and looking at those numbers, that's something I think I'm incredibly proud of, because whether these the authors have written their books or not, to know that I've been a part of mentoring aspiring authors or helping people to get out their stories and to develop their confidence and to learn about promotional marketing, that means a lot to me, I think.
Mhm.
And I don't know how we've managed to publish 60 books in the last 6 years, because it
Because you're
just
good
shows
at what you do.
that again.
It's because you're good at what you do. That's how you've been
Thank
able to do
you.
it. You're good at it.
Thank you
Mhm.
very much. I appreciate that. But I think that looking at those numbers, that is the biggest achievement.
Mhm. And they're good numbers. So, what is the future big goal if you're looking forward to, say, like in the next 5, 10 years? If there's
Yeah,
one thing that I'm going to achieve, this is going to be it.
big goal to be HarperCollins. No, not really. Big goal is I'd like to, this is a big vision, to, I don't know whether it means setting up different countries, publishings in different countries. No, I don't think so. But I'd like to travel a lot more and go to different countries. I'd like to speak to that woman in Sudan and speak about her experience as a woman living in Sudan. I'd like to speak to, the woman in China and find out about her experience, what she's going through. I'd like to speak to, the woman in Saudi Arabia, the woman in Australia. I'd like to speak to all these different women at different corners of the world and find out their experience,
Mhm.
because although we may experience life differently as women, and especially coming from different cultures, because that plays a huge part in it, and different belief systems, ultimately we're all overcoming similar things like abandonment, oppression, um, abuse. Sometimes we're also going through amazing things. Motherhood is something that most women have in common. um, just amazing things, and share these similarities and also celebrate these differences, and just create a massive global conference where we all get to talk and share our stories, and hopefully a lot of these different women who I've just imagined in my mind will be coming with their books that we've published. So that's really the dream and the vision, to really support authors worldwide to publish their books. And obviously I'm well aware that some of these women in these different places may not have the funding to be able to fund their books. So to find some sort of funding or way to really get these stories that would not come out of that village or that particular place otherwise.
I'm not trying to go into like 15 more questions because I do this all the time and then it takes too long to upload. But I can really see that, like, you created a very clear picture in my brain. What is stopping you from doing that now?
I have no idea, because as I was speaking to you, I was clearly seeing that there as well. There's nothing stopping me. It's just it's not yet. It's something to look forward to, but I can start to put the wheels in motion. And I believe very much in like receiving guidance from a higher source. So I believe very much in, like, knowing when your time is and knowing when that guidance will come. And so it's there. I've spoken it out now. It's the second time I've spoken it out. So I know it's going to happen. It's one of those things, like when I was 4, I used to say I'm a writer. I wasn't ready at 4, but I was ready when I can't remember when I finished my book, 30 something. It was a while ago. So
I love
yes,
that.
there's
I
nothing.
love that. No, I like the fact that it's true. Everything in its time, and actually speak it into existence, and it will be. I completely
Yeah.
co-support that message. I love that message. So before I go off on a tangent again, 3 pieces of advice you would give to a woman who's watching, who wants to start her own business or wants to become an author. I don't know if you can do both at the same time, but 3 pieces of
Yeah.
advice. 3 pieces of advice you'd give.
That life is really, really short, okay? And it feels like yesterday I was speaking to someone about it the other day. It feels like yesterday I was 18. I can remember everything really clearly. And at the end of the month, at the end of this year, I'm going to be 40, and I still don't understand where the time went. And the
But
time
it didn't
seems
go
like,
on your face because you don't look anywhere near 40. So
thank you,
life has
darling.
been good to you.
That's my mum. But you don't want to be one of those people, who are in the grave with your buried and dead ideas that never happened. Les Brown says that the richest places in the world is a graveyard. So when you think about it, that's full of like businesses that were never set up, inventions that were never created, books that were never written, books that were never read, stories that were never heard. So what are we going to allow to hold us back? fear and doubt, or the fact that, you know, somebody's told us that we're not capable of doing things. How are we going to know unless we try and do it? And as Maya Angelou said, feel the fear and do it anyway. And one thing that kind of keeps me going is sticking really close to my why. So when I was writing my first book, Mr. Wrong, yes, I had days where I'd think, oh my gosh, I don't want to know this. Is this going to be good enough? But I knew by hook or by crook, my why was I wanted to unite, inspire, and empower women, give them a safe space to share their stories, to laugh, to cry, to learn from their lessons, and to learn how to make better, more empowered choices. And so that took my ego away and became my focus. So if you're struggling with like confidence, or you're struggling with, is this good enough? Am I good enough? Really focus on who you're serving and what you've come here to do, because that will just obliterate a lot of all the doubt that you have before. Go for it. You've only got one life.
Oh, I love that. And if people want to find out more about you, your business, where can they go to find that information?
My website is www.consciousdreamspublishing.com. You can find me on Facebook under Dani Blechner, BLECHNER, or Conscious Dreams Publishing. Instagram, Conscious Dreams Publishing. My email address is info@Conscious Dreams Publishing. Twitter is Dreams Conscious. Best thing is to just pop over to the website, find out more about our what we offer, and you can also click the link and book a free 30-minute consultation as well.
So I'm going to do that because I've been writing a book since 2013, and I've committed to having it completed by December 2019. So I will be clicking for a 30-minute free consultation.
Okay. Awesome. There you go.
I've been putting it out there publicly. I'm putting it out there publicly. By the end of this year, it will be finished. So
yes, put it out there. So I'll ask you, what's stopping you?
Me. I know what's stopping with me. I do too many things. I haven't been allocating time. When I was allocating time and had an accountability body, in 2017 I did a lot. I've written probably about half of the book. So I've recently got a new accountability body, and I'm starting the process again and putting it out publicly because I don't want to be embarrassed and say all these big things and don't actually do it. So I'm trying to tell as many people so that everybody holds me to account. So
yes, exactly. Yeah. We have accountability buddies in our group as well, but we'll talk. This sounds good.
Yeah, no, I look forward to it. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed speaking with you and finding out more about you and your business. And I hope you guys watching or listening have really found it as useful as I have. Make sure, as usual, if you're watching on YouTube, that you hit that like button, you subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if there's anything that's resonated in this interview today, please make sure that you write a comment and share with your networks. I'm sure there's a woman out there somewhere that you can share this with who this is really going to have a profound impact on them. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you again next week. And remember, think big, take action, and keep pushing.